President Minnie and members of the Meteoritical Society, it's a genuine pleasure to present Michael Zolensky for the 55th recipient of the Leonard Medal. Mike has made remarkable contributions to our field and allied fields with his discoveries in science and enthusiastic sharing of his encyclopedic knowledge of meteorites and minerals, as well as his tireless curatorial service to the sample community. He has profoundly enriched our field. Mike is a renowned expert in mineralogy and petrology and geochemistry of meteoritic materials, and he has served as a vital intellectual resource to our community and instigated many very fruitful, collaborative, and innovative efforts that involve literally hundreds of colleagues around the world and produced an astoundingly impressive list of publications. His broad range of endeavors have included the historic study and curation of the first asteroid and samples returned to Earth by spacecraft. With Japanese colleagues, he participated in identifying and studying the asteroid Itokawa samples collected by Hayabusa, and this work led to an amazing link between S-type asteroids and ordinary chondrites, and also provided unique evidence on space weathering. Mike led the large international MinPet team on the Stardust mission that produced the first characteristics of samples of comets that are collected by spacecraft. This included the unexpected discovery of chondrule fragments and CAI fragments in comets, and this showed that there had been mixing between the hottest and coldest regions of the early solar system. He also found that aqueous alteration products, while a major focus of the meteorite studies, were surprisingly rare in samples from an ice-rich body. In addition to mission samples, Mike has also worked on naturally delivered sample returns, including cosmic dust, meteorites captured in space, and he's also played major roles in study of several exceptional meteorites, such as Tagus Lake and Almaceta and Kaidun. And he has long been intrigued by foreign inclusions in meteorites that are essentially tiny asteroid fragments collected by other asteroids. A common theme in Mike's research has been aqueous alteration in chondrites, in Martian meteorites, and in interplanetary dust particles. Mike and Ian McKinnon identified the prominent mysterious phase in CMs that had formerly called PCP, for poorly characterized phase. They linked it to the rare terrestrial mineral toshilinite and gave PCP a name, and also provided important new constraints on the asteroidal environments needed to produce this phase. Related to these efforts is his really spectacular work on fluid inclusions in rare, miraculously preserved meteoritic halite. These inclusions are the only extraterrestrial water samples that have been directly studied in the laboratory. I was first shown these in the meteorite Mohans in Mike's office. And Mike asked me, he says, "Do you want to taste it? Do you want to lick it?" And I secretly wish I had done this, but I didn't. It was kind of a sacrilegious act. But at the time, it wasn't really known that these salt crystals were legitimate and that they had old iodine-129 ages and provided unique information on the early solar system. In his curatorial functions, Mike has had critical contributions to cosmic dust, and particles collected in space, and he was also in charge of both the comet and interstellar samples collected by the Stardust Comet Sample Return mission. Mike, along with Scott Sanford and NASA Ames, were the doomsday squad on Stardust that would have used flashlights and tongs and tweezers and other gadgets to gather loose aerogel and comet dust, just in case the sample return capsule broke open on a hard impact in the Utah desert. This would have been done at 3 a.m. In the morning in a remote part of the Great Salt Lake Desert, in an area that had over half a century of unexploded military ordnance in it. So this was a heroic endeavor. Mike, another noteworthy thing that Mike did along with colleagues was that he used a Dremel tool to legally excavate parts of the Stardust sample return capsule that are in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. This was done to provide some information on the composition of something that was needed to detect secondary impacts on the interstellar side of the collector. In addition to his scientific prowess, Mike is just really a lot of fun to work with. Everyone will agree to this. And when publishing with a group, which he commonly does, Mike, almost always with a grin, suggests that the authorship should be in alphabetical order, starting with Z. It hardly ever is. But when we had our first Stardust meeting at Timber Cove Inn, we all drove far up this windy road up north of San Francisco, up to what seemed like the end of the known world. And when we got there, when Mike got there to this isolated outpost, he established an instant rapport with the owner of the inn. They had a common friend. This was the guy that discovered the first samples from Tagus Lake. And so instantly, Mike, the owner of the inn, and this guy from Tagus Lake were on the phone telling these great stories about recovering these meteorites. At the second meeting we had the next year at Timber Cove Inn, Mike arrived kind of late at night. He arrived late. He'd come early, but he arrived late because he had been collecting minerals. He had gone to the type locality of Deerite, Howieite, and Sussmanite. And these are very famous but very rare minerals. And he gave some of us some samples of these materials. As a final fun story, I would like to talk about how I ended up in the middle of a dark night in Texas at a century-old and reportedly haunted abandoned babyhead cemetery in the Texas Hill Country. I was traveling with my family, and I wanted to see these marvelous blue quartz grains that Mike had mentioned to me, and I did find them. And it wasn't until later that I found out that Mike had actually written the definitive paper on these chatoyant blue little quartz crystals, and showed that the blue character of it was due to Rayleigh scattering of tiny submicron ilmenite crystals in them. So Mike had used the full power of microanalysis to study these little blue quartz crystals in Central Texas. Mike has been totally ubiquitous in our field, and I don't believe that I've ever been part or heard of a sample-related committee or group that Mike hasn't been part of. He's sort of automatically attached to all of these committees. And his efforts, scientific and curatorial-wise, have benefited an enormous number of people. He's been a great facilitator of collaborations between scientists working in different countries, and this strong interaction between cultures has enriched and provided a remarkable worldwide cross-fertilization in cosmochemistry. I think many people that dealt with Mike would agree with a comment that was made by in one of the many supporting letters for Mike's nomination for this medal. And that statement was, "I view Dr. Zolensky as one of the living legends in the golden age of astromaterial sample return missions in the post-Apollo era." And there's congratulations, Mike, and we all love you. Bye-bye.